what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys, the latest physique updates, several of them, from Quint Beastwood at about 2 weeks out from the 2025 Italy Pro, where he's going to be trying again after a couple near misses at both the Tampa and the Texas Pro recently this year. And I really like following the Quint Beastwood story. I feel like this is a real underdog story. I feel like a good underdog in bodybuilding turns out to be some of the most exciting and compelling bodybuilding stories that we see throughout the history of bodybuilding. And I got to say, you know, him staying with Samson over there in the UK while he finishes out this prep for this show, I've got to say, to Samson's credit, I've become so much more of a Samson fan since he won the Olympia in 2024. Just seeing the way that he carried himself and the way that he's represented that Olympia title as an ambassador for bodybuilding, you know, not only all the stuff that we've talked about already, you know, all the guest posings that he's done, you know, traveling the world, doing appearances as Mr. Olympia, making himself extremely accessible to the fans, posting constant physique updates, guest posings, like I said, very active on social media. The way that he's carried himself as the Olympia champ, I think, is something that we should really be appreciative of and really respect. But I think, you know, superior to all of that is something like this, where you've got the current reigning Mr. Olympia champ taking a guy under his wing that's been struggling a little bit. He's right on the edge. Quinton is right there. He's bringing some of his best looks ever that he's ever brought to the stage, but he's still kind of struggling to get that win, to get that Olympia qualification, to take that next step to the next level in his career. And honestly, to see Samson do something like this and take him in, take him under his wing, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Samson and what he's doing here. And, you know, add that to the pile of things that he's done since he's won the Olympia title. But I think this might be one of the coolest things that he's doing, is helping a young up-and-coming bodybuilder that hasn't quite nailed it yet, isn't quite there, but's right on the edge, all the potential in the world, insane structure, insane genetics, and I think this will make a difference. I look at these physique updates, and the physique update from today, striated glutes, separated hamstrings, still 2 weeks out. I think we're going to see a better version of Quinton at this show, and I think it will be a direct result of him being around Samson, maybe getting some guidance from Samson. If you watched some of the vlogs from Quinton leading up to Tampa and Texas, he kind of talks about his process of essentially coaching and prepping himself, and he would just bounce, you know, physique updates, progress pictures off of his friends who are competitors or coaches or whatever, and just get feedback and tweak things. With Samson being in the position that he's in, Samson won the Olympia under the guidance of his wife as his coach. And for Quinton to be there with the both of them, I'm presuming they're helping him with his prep at a bare minimum, in the sense of he's bouncing, you know, not physique updates off of them, but they're right there with him in person, seeing his physique. I'm sure they're giving him some type of guidance or advice, or helping him make some tweaks and changes to his physique so that he can bring his best package. I think we are going to see a better version of Quinton as a direct result of this, you know, collaboration or guidance, if you will, from Samson. And that's why I like this story so much. And these are not easy shows that Quinton is doing. These Olympia qualifying shows, you know, the Tampa and Texas were some of the deepest lineups that we've seen in a long time. And these upcoming shows, Italy and also the Germany show, now you've got Urs Kausinski, Lewis Breed, Emir Omaragic, Sergio Oliva Jr., you've got Stefan Matala's pro debut. I mean, these are, if he wins one of these shows, it's a big deal for him. It's not him winning a show where there's only like 6 or 7 guys that show up. These are going to be deep lineups with established big names, and it will be a big win for him, Quinton, if he wins one of these 2 shows. And he's the guy that I'm rooting for the most. I mean, now that you've got Urs in the mix, I'm obviously rooting for Urs. I want to see that's an underdog story to me as well. But I think Quinton has come so close to bringing his best. And I think structurally, he was the best guy structurally at all of the shows that he's done so far this year. And that's part of why I want to see him on that Olympia stage. But again, I just want to emphasize the respect that I've gained for Samson, watching the way that he's handled this Olympia title and seeing him help, you know, Quinton through this process. I think is really impressive. And I'll show you guys the most recent update from Sergio too, because I think on paper, Sergio Oliva Jr. is probably going to be the biggest on-paper threat to Quinton at either of these two shows. I also think it's interesting that Boss of Outlaw Stefan is going to be coaching both Sergio and Urs going into these shows. And I'm definitely going to do a more in-depth Italy Pro preview, obviously a Germany Pro preview, where I break down all of these guys, even some of the names that you might not be as familiar with, and talk about all their recent physique updates. We'll probably do that next week at a week out, or maybe next Monday when we get the official competitor list and start to see some of these other names. But like Sergio, Amir, on paper, probably the two biggest threats to Quinton. I think it's not going to be an easy show for him to win, but I do think under the guidance of Samson Dauda, he could. I think Sergio looks really impressive in these updates. I don't think we saw the best version of Sergio at the FIBO show earlier this year. I hope that we see a better version of him here in terms of not as flat, maybe a little bit more conditioned than he was in FIBO, and he looks to be on track to do that based on these physique updates. Again, we're 2 weeks out, and I know we've got the Olympia coming up, so we're going to be shifting focus to that here in the coming weeks, but to be honest, we've got a really exciting ending to the competitive season. These last two open qualifiers for the Olympia, I think these are going to turn out to be really exciting, really interesting shows, deep lineups. I'm excited for these last two shows of the year, and I want to put a good focus on those before we really shift into, talking about Olympia updates constantly mode. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you guys think that Quinton is going to be able to earn his Olympia qualification? Do you think Sergio will? Do you think there's a chance that Urs comes in and makes his open debut and potentially wins one or maybe even both of these open shows? Let me know your predictions for... There's only two names going to be added to that Olympia qualified competitor list for 2025. Which two names, let me know in the comments below, do you think will be added to that list? Now, next up in the news, we got something rare, a recent physique update from Chris Bumstead. Now, obviously, he's been posting pretty actively. He's still been training. But I think a lot of people are surprised to see that now, almost a full year into his retirement from competitive classic physique, from competitive bodybuilding, we're almost at the year mark from when he retired. I think people are surprised to see how much size he's held on to and how good he still looks. I mean, he doesn't look like a guy that's prepping for the Olympia, obviously, because he's not. But I think, frankly, he doesn't look much different, and I think in some cases looks better than some of the classic physique guys that we're talking about, even as first call-out guys. And I'm not going to say conditioning-wise, but size-wise, for the muscle that he has and the condition that he's in, he still looks on par with really a lot of the guys that we're talking about for the top 10 at the Classic Physique Olympia and the updates that we've seen from them. And I think people are surprised to see that, considering that Chris, like I said, it's almost been a year. He's taken time away for, his wedding. He had a kid. All these like family things that he stepped away for, health things that he stepped away for, seemingly not living that Classic Physique Mr. Olympia type of lifestyle, but he still looks like he could be a Classic Physique Mr. Olympia. He still has that physique. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't think we've seen the last of Chris Bumstead on a competitive IFBB stage. It might not be this year, it might not be next year, it might not even be in the next 5 years. But Chris is only 30 years old. He retired at the age of 29. I've talked about this before. I think there is so much potential and possibility, maybe even likelihood, that he could come back even years from now and still be highly competitive. And whether that be classic physique or open bodybuilding, I don't think we've seen the last of Chris. And I think that Chris is going to be waiting in the wings watching what happens at the Classic Physique Olympia this year. Does somebody win that Chris thinks is not a good new standard for classic physique? Or does somebody win that Chris thinks he can beat easily if he came back the following year? Does the result of this year's Mr. Olympia, while Chris is watching, inspire Chris to come back and set that tone again? I don't think it's out of the realm of the possibilities in bodybuilding. I think if we've learned anything from retired bodybuilders, one of the things that we've learned is a lot of bodybuilders, especially bodybuilders that retired young, especially bodybuilders that were at the top of their game when they were in their prime. A lot of them don't stay retired. That's just the fact. Now, granted, Chris is in a little bit of a different position when it comes to that because he is so financially stable and he can exist without competing to an extent that probably no other IFBB pro can. There's not really anybody on his level in terms of that. He doesn't need to compete. He doesn't need the Olympia. He doesn't need the IFBB. Chris Bumstead right now can leave all of that behind, never go back, and he'll be great. So he doesn't have a huge upside, a huge financial upside or incentive at least to come back. But I wonder if he watches the Olympia this year and he gets that itch to come back. Because look, I look at this update too and I think, man, I'm surprised by how good Chris looks in this update. It's surprising for a guy that's not prepping for anything. And in the context of the fact that he's just coming off of his wedding, I wouldn't expect him to be in any type of great shape. Now, next up in the news, we are right around the 7-week out mark now from the 2025 Mr. Olympia. We've got a couple updates from two of the top guys, one of them being Nick Walker. I'm very impressed with how Nick Walker is looking. This is a video from one of his recent vlogs. And Nick is one of the guys that I'm really rooting for at this year's Olympia. I said earlier in this video, I really like a good underdog story. I like what we saw from Nick at the Pittsburgh Pro, coming back after a 2-year hiatus. I like what we saw from Nick at the New York Pro, picking up the win in the Olympia qualification. I like that kind of thing. And I feel like looking at the Olympia lineup this year, we're used to seeing 3 guys in that top 3. Samson, Derek, and Hadi. I think the most entertaining outcome would be an underdog cracking into that top 3. And I look at that lineup, and I think Nick Walker is the most likely to do that if anybody is going to. Look, I like Derek, I like Hadi, I like Samson, but nobody likes seeing the same 3 guys in the top 3 every single year. And I look at Nick, and he just looks ridiculous. He looks gigantic, massive, freaky. These updates from Nick, he is one of these guys that it's so easy to root for because he's entertaining. And I think that's what he would bring to that top 3 at the Olympia. That's what I want to see. I want to see Nick in the top 3 this year. I don't know how likely it is. For me, I think Nick will at least be in that top 6. I think he'll probably be top 5 in the money. He'll get a check. I'm not super comfortable predicting he's going to be top 3, but everything that I've seen from Nick as we get closer to the show, his confidence, the physique updates, his attitude, what we saw from Nick the last time we saw him on stage, I think he's going to be in the mix for the top 3. I really do. I know there's a lot of people doubting him. I know there's a lot of Nick Walker haters right now. He's just really one of the guys that I'm rooting for the most, and I hope that he proves me right. I mean, look at this guy's physique in this video. This is what open bodybuilding is all about. This is a freak. This is a mass monster. This is a guy that cannot walk down the street without people staring at them. This is a guy that people don't see in everyday life. This is what open bodybuilding is, and I hope that he brings his best ever package and that he gets rewarded for it at the Olympia this year. Now, next up in the news, we also got a physique update from Hadi Choopan at almost 7 weeks out from the Olympia. Now, Hadi obviously was runner-up last year. In the conversation of who is going to be the guy that could potentially beat Samson, realistically, Hadi should be number 1 on that list. He's beaten Samson before, obviously. He's won the Olympia before, obviously. But he was second last year. I know we've been talking about Nick and Derek basically all year. The Pittsburgh Pro was exciting. That was great. Their rivalry has been exciting. The trash talk, the drama, the beef between the two of them. But if we're being honest, the number 1 guy that Samson should be worried about, that Nick should be worried about, that Derek should be worried about, is Hadi. Hadi does not miss. Even if he's slightly off, he's still the most conditioned guy in that top 3. He will catch any single one of these guys if they are slipping at the Olympia. Guaranteed. He will be in shape. And I think based on these updates, Hadi is, out of all the top Olympia guys that we're talking about, I don't think anybody's updates look more conditioned than Hadi's do. I think he's got the best chance at winning, aside from Samson, the returning defending champion. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What are your 2025 Mr. Olympia predictions? What are your 2025 Italy and Germany show predictions? What do you think about Chris Bumstead? Is he going to stay retired? Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.